Okay, so here's the very beginning steps of the startup of the Jecat. Here's the radio that I'm using. It's a Futaba T9CHP, and I also use an Extreme Link, which is for the receiver part on the Jecat itself. I got one of these filling containers, which is nice to carry the kerosene or the jet fuel to be able to fuel the Jecat. I highly recommend to get this from Jecat. It's about $200 and it's well worth it. Here's the propane that I'm going to be using. You can get this propane at basically any camping store, and you got to make sure it has that type of a tip at the top of it. And this is what is going to be used to start up the turbine and for its initial start. And once you inject this propane into the actual turbine from where it is housed right here, once it goes into the turbine, then the glow plug in the turbine ignites the propane, which starts the initial start of the turbine, which then finally, as time goes on, the fuel is actually introduced, the jet fuel, and then of course then it ramps up, and then the ECU and all the electronics does everything for you. That's it for that part. Okay, well, the next part that we're doing is putting the propane into the actual tank. So I'm going to show you how that's done. There is, right in front of the battery, there will be a small little filling nozzle that's right here. This is what we're going to be using to actually fill the canister with. But before you can do that, you have to reach down in here, and any time that there is any storage of this unit, you want to be able to close this unit, so that way the propane will actually build up in pressure in the tank. So that's been closed. Now the next thing we can actually do is actually fill the tank. Your goal is to get liquid inside the tank, not gas. So I usually just go ahead and just push this in, turn it upside down, and I can see some bubbles, but also there's some clear liquid that's finally going in, and that's it. It's now filled, and I usually just tuck this away. So that's the first part. Next thing you'll be seeing is the actual fueling. Okay, well, now we're at the point where now we're going to be doing the actual fueling of the helicopter, and I just wanted to give you an idea that this is the fuel tank that I used from Jecat, which I highly recommend you to use. It basically, this is just an extra extension line that I made on my own. But what you have here is this machine can do where it can empty it or it can fill it. And then this button here, and just to show you when I push it on, you'll see the flow of the fuel come through here, go through the filter, and then right back into the tank. And then of course here's where you fill it. And keep in mind that basically the oil that I use is Aeroshell 500 turbine oil is the only oil that you should use. Anybody else that recommends anything else, that's not a good idea, because this turbine is built by Jecat, and when you start using other things, you can the next thing I'm going to do is fill the tank. So all I'm going to do is push this button here, and now the fuel is going into these tanks right now, and I'll be doing that until they're completely filled, like I said before. And then of course I'll wait to see some small bubbles coming out of here, and then I will shut it off. That'll let me know these tanks are full. And then keep in mind as this helicopter is flying, it actually takes its fuel from this actual clear tank. So it actually kind of goes in reverse. You're filling the tank so that way you can get the reserve tanks filled. But when the engine's actually running, then it's actually taking it from here. And these are the reserves feeding this small main tank. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I'm here now where I'm basically going to be demonstrating that all the servos and everything work correctly on this unit, on this turbine. So here I'm going to be turning on the radio, which you want to turn on first. Okay, and then after that you want to turn on the turbine. Okay. Wait a moment to make sure that everything is going okay. I should have a green light that's here, which I do, which means the receiver is operating correctly. Now what I'm going to do is check for the actual throttle. I can see that that goes up and down, so that's working correctly. Servos are working correctly. I got the tail rudder, which is working perfectly fine. Okay, and then of course even the swash plate, back and forth, side to side. Everything's working just fine. Okay, now I'm ready here to go ahead and actually start the actual turbine. And first thing I do is turn on the radio, turn on the heli. I previously, of course, already put the propane in the tank. I've already got the Jecat fuel in the tanks, and then of course then I've also turned on the power. So everything is go in that area. I've already previously checked everything to make sure everything was correct. You know, this is tight, not loose. You got to make sure that all these things are good before you fly. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is when I turn up this nozzle, turn the dial up halfway, you will see that it's flashing all three lights, and that means it's a go. If not all three are flashing individually, then it means there's something wrong. And sometimes what it could be is your battery pack here isn't full enough charged. It's got to be fully charged, or the machine will not turn on, for many safety things that this ECU will take care of. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is turn this knob all the way, and when I do, then I keep it that way, and the whole computer system will do everything, and will basically inject the propane, start up the engine, and then of course then after that, then the jet fuel will go in, and then the engine will ramp up. So here we go. It's just ignited the propane, and now it's going to go the rest of the way. And now what it's doing after I turned it off, it is now cooling itself down, and as you can see, everything's working correct. And what you do to turn it off is you basically take this knob, you turn it all the way, and it will shut it down, and you let it completely cool. And keep in mind that the cooling part is very important, because if the cooling motor didn't work, the hot heat is able to go back up into the turbine and do some serious damage. Keep in mind, this is a very fine-tuned machine. And the computer system's doing the whole thing. I'm doing nothing. And you let it keep on continuously to cool it until it finally, the electric motor will stop on its own, because there is a sensor in it. And there you go. You have a Jecat turbine that's been fully, clearly explained and how to turn it on, and now you can just enjoy it.